This year has been absolutely incredible for multiplayer games, from the excellent and recent launch of Ark Raiders to the massive success of Battlefield 6. It's been a pretty monstrous year so far, I have to say. Even so, Xbox Game Pass still contains a cracking amount of multiplayer games, and if you're wanting to dive into one, then I have you covered. With that, my name is Fletcher, and this is Xbox Nation, and let's just dive right into it. Halo really came back to capture its multiplayer crown with the rise of Halo Infinite. The recent resurgence and run of form by the Halo team has actually made Infinite into one of the best free-to-play shooters that's available on Xbox Game Pass right now. Halo Infinite though actually perfectly balances the wants and needs of casual and competitive players, and mechanically the game plays as smoothly as the FPS genre's essential modern pillar needs to play. The weapon sandbox is utterly outstanding, ranging from classic standbys such as a plasma pistol and battle rifle to tantalizing newcomers like the skewer. The movement mechanics were actually pretty simplified here and somehow streamlined, utilizing modern nuances such as simple clambering while avoiding some of Halo 5's more controversial additions. Unfortunately, the final update for this one is landing pretty shortly, and it is certainly a shame as the multiplayer is in a very good spot these days. Voidtrain was a recent addition to the Xbox Game Pass library, and I've been absolutely loving my time with this one ever since it got released. Essentially, you and up to 3 friends can dive into the void together, and you're basically venturing through it on a train, as the name implies. In this, you're an engineer trying to find a missing scientist by all means necessary, and you have to not only upgrade your train but also maintain it, fight enemies, and so much more. It really is a great time when you dive into it with a few mates, especially as you can set up different scenarios and games to make it even harder or even weirder. I kind of liken it a lot to sort of Sea of Thieves, but this time it's set on a train instead of a pirate ship, and it includes none of that sort of PvP action, which could get pretty frustrating. It's certainly one that I highly recommend, and you can check out my review within the next couple of days. One game that I absolutely love reviewing when it came to Xbox Game Preview earlier this year was 33 Immortals. This is a co-op action roguelike that's bringing something truly unique to the table that we've never actually seen before. This game is all about the sort of massive scale multiplayer action in the best way possible. So essentially 33 players take on relentless waves of enemies and towering bosses together, and it kind of reminds me of a massive MMO raid but streamlined into a more accessible and fast-paced experience. If you've ever wanted to experience that sort of exhilarating all-in battle feeling but without that usual MMO grind, then 33 Immortals is still shaping up to be something perfect in its preview state. This game actually marks Thunder Lotus' first venture into multiplayer though, and from what I've played so far, it's an absolutely incredible ride. It recently received a massive update with a ton of new content recently, so it's definitely worth diving into if you do get the chance. No matter what tier you're on, and as long as you're playing on either PC or the Xbox Ally handhelds, Xbox Game Pass subscribers can dive in and start playing Albion Online. This free-to-play MMO has actually been available on an Xbox PC app since the start of October, and a lovely aspect is that you can dive into this one with some lovely rewards as part of your subscription. If you've never heard of it before, essentially Albion Online is a fantasy MMO that launched all the way back in 2017, and is one that actually does feel pretty similar by anyone who's played it, like myself, as World of Warcraft and RuneScape, or countless other fantasy games within that genre. It's still pretty consistent, especially with its popularity over on PC and smartphones, and I do have to say it's a little bit less fussy than other MMOs on the market, as it doesn't railroad you into different classes that you can play as. I've actually been having a blast since trying it, and it's been my daily multiplayer game since getting the Xbox ROG Ally. Deep Rock Galactic is the ultimate co-op experience for up to 4 players, and it combines first-person shooting with mining and exploration, but in procedurally generated caves. You play as one of 4 unique classes, with each bringing distinct tools and abilities to tackle the game's dangerous environments. The mission variety is a standout feature though, ranging from mining rare minerals and salvaging equipment to surviving waves of alien enemies. The caves are pretty dark and sprawling, and filled with tons of hazards, so it does require your teamwork to navigate and complete objectives. The game's progression system also allows you to upgrade your own gear and unlock some cool cosmetics, and adds such a reward to the sense of growth. The humour and personality of Deep Rock Galactic really shines through though, with its classic variety of characters, with its creative weaponry as well, and just so many community focused events. Whether you're blowing up hordes of space bugs or carefully extracting resources, you definitely need to partner up with your rock and stone brothers and sisters. One game that also came back to Xbox Game Pass a few months ago now is one that I do dearly love. Vermintide 2 is easily one of the best multiplayer co-op games that's available to this day. It really does hit that sort of Left 4 Dead nail on the head, especially with the hordes and the insane and visceral combat. This though is a game that's built for co-op mayhem, and it just goes utterly insane. You and up to 3 friends pick from a group of gritty, battle-hardened heroes, and then dive headfirst into swarms of Skaven, and also the chaotic forces that never seem to let up. Each character also does feel pretty unique about them, and the way that they grow throughout their careers and loot keeps everything fresh for dozens of hours. Whether you're a veteran of the Warhammer universe like myself, as I did actually collect Skaven, so it feels a bit of a missed opportunity to include some other forces, you'll find yourself quickly addicted to the absolute carnage of this one. I can't recommend it enough, and you just have to dive into it as soon as possible. Before we do dive into the remaining games on this video though, please do consider subscribing down below, as it really helps the channel out. It is free to do so, and at the moment over 68% of you are not subscribed, and I would love you to join one of the fastest growing Xbox channels here on YouTube. Obviously things are changing pretty rapidly within the Xbox realm, and any support is much appreciated, so thank you so much. With that out of the way though, let's just dive right back into the multiplayer games you need to play on Xbox Game Pass. Bethesda has been patching and overhauling Fallout 76 all the way since its 2018 launch, and it kind of makes me really old saying that, but there's no online game that sort of fits the same niche. If you imagine stuff like Animal Crossing New Horizons, and it allowed players to leave their cozy island abodes to stab giant sloths in an overgrown swamp, or just visit a city full of raiders and set up a heist on a government vault, then that's basically Fallout 76. Appalachia is a massive open world with lots to explore, and going through this game with a friend or two makes it so much more fun. Even when the game was in the early state, my friends and I would make our own fun by combing through a school, mowing down different ghouls, and splitting up the springs and caps amongst ourselves. There's much more to do in the game now, from daily operations, quests in the world, cannibal hotels, quest chains, NPCs to meet and romance, and so much more, so it's definitely worth a revisit if you haven't picked up the game in a while, or if you're just brand new to this series. Battlefield 5 took us back to World War II, and is one of the best FPS games set during that World War era. It's great to finally say that though, especially as the launch of the game was just so pretty lackluster. Unlike other war games though, it actually focuses on the personal stories of soldiers across different fronts, similar to Battlefield 1, but this time in the trenches, to windswept mountains of Norway, and so much more. On the multiplayer front though, Battlefield 5 offers some of the most intense large-scale battles you'll ever experience, and it features up to 64 players on massive destructible maps, including stuff like tanks, planes, battleships, and even V2 rockets, which can come in with some devastating effects. As I mentioned, a lot of people didn't really give this one a shot due to the poor reviews at launch, but since DICE updated the game massively, it's still one of the best looking and playing Battlefield games available on Xbox Game Pass. Gears of War Reloaded is just one game I'm still pretty annoyed by, and that's simply because I was kind of hoping for a Gears 2 or even 3 remaster or a remake, but no, Xbox did decide to give us another visual upgrade for the first game. However, the multiplayer aspect of it is actually pretty decent. Even so as well, the visual fidelity of this one is looking pretty lovely, and many have really enjoyed diving back into the first game once again, or just trying it out for the very first time. The main highlight I do see time and time again though, is just how well the multiplayer fares, and a lot of people are actually enjoying the full lobbies and maps of the original once again. I've actually put a few hours in myself, and it's just classic Gears, and it does make me feel like I'm in the good old days of the 360. Definitely do jump into this one if you want to for that nostalgia, and you certainly won't be disappointed. One survival game that really took the world by storm earlier this year was Grounded 2. This one was actually released into early access as per the first entry, and it's been pretty well received, which is just so lovely to see. This one again has you shrinking down as the 4 original children, but this time in a brand new setting called Brick Hollow Park. There are a ton more creatures, more quests for you to go on, and now the ability to mount insects and prowl about the place, which is pretty cool. I won't lie, it has been a little while now since I've actually had a chance to dive into this one, but from what I've heard, the content drops have been pretty regular, which is great to see. Even so, if you want a game to jump into with your friends, then definitely check it out, or if you're like me, I'll probably just dive into it once it hits that 1.0 release. Hell Let Loose immediately strikes a couple of FPS tropes that may tempt one to overlook it. A large-scale World War II Battlefield-like shooter that doesn't exactly break new ground. However, what Hell Let Loose really delivers in terms of its depth, strategy, and immersion executes on that vision far better than most of the FPS contemporaries. While teamwork provides a distinct tactical edge in most team-based FPS titles on the market, Hell Let Loose practically mandates it for you to secure victory. With incredible attention to detail here and an authentic military experience where you can die from one shot, you will easily be left on your toes in every single match. You have stuff like class-based loadouts as well, which are also nothing new, but Hell Let Loose goes a further step in wrapping it around a sort of squad selection tool. Hell Let Loose is a fantastically deep and tactically robust World War II FPS experience with a very high skill ceiling, and a definite must try, especially if you want an authentic World War II shooter. Hunt Showdown 1896 is an absolute masterpiece within the extraction shooter genre. For me, it's not as great as the recent Arc Raiders, but it's still a solid FPS extraction shooter. There is a sort of fair challenge in all the matches as well, since there's no one flying and spraying SMGs all over the place like Call of Duty, and the pace of the matches are much slower and way more strategic. This is one though you will definitely want to dive into with a friend in co-op, as the more you work with your team, the better the overall experience. You will essentially start in the corrupted backwaters of the bayou, and you'll have to fight back alone or with your friends against timeless evil. There are a ton of twisted monsters and other ruthless hunters standing between you and your bounty, and you have to risk it all with that sort of addictive extraction shooter gameplay. For all of you watching this video who like more strategic gameplay rather than running and flying while spraying an SMG or assault rifle, this is a game I absolutely recommend. I'm a very big lover of football in general, so when I did see the chance that we're getting an online football game this year, and it was centered around a single character and similar to the anime known as Galactic Football, I was personally pretty hyped. This one though launched earlier in 2025 and was brought to us by the devs behind Sifu. Of course, that is a completely wild concept to think that both games came out from that developer, but they absolutely nailed the promise of an addictive online game with some fantastic controls. It was quite widely praised on its launch, and I even shared some of that love in my own review here on the channel, and it's kind of like Rocket League, but instead centered on the ground. This game can be incredibly fun with your friends though, especially when you're making the right passes and ultimately scoring. It just feels so great. There have also been a ton of updates since its launch, including crossplay, more cosmetics, battle passes, etc. So now really is the best time to enjoy this one. If you just throw a ton of Star Wars characters onto a battlefield, you've already made the promise of an incredibly popular game. Make it multiplayer and things can only improve from there, but if you toss in some steep microtransactions or pay-to-win mechanics, you will lose that entire player base. That was the mistake that EA learned with Battlefront 2, the Star Wars game with the most tumultuous launch I've ever seen. Though the game is mechanically sound and players really enjoyed the gameplay and large-scale battles, EA did nearly tank the project with costly loot boxes and so much more. These days though, EA have removed those microtransactions, all of the DLC is now included with some excellent maps, and Battlefront 2 is in the best state where we've ever seen it before. It had a massive resurgence in terms of its popularity earlier this year, and to be honest, I had an absolute blast diving into it again, and it's easily one of my favourite multiplayer games available on Game Pass. I have to say, if you haven't experienced it before, it's still pretty popular, and it's definitely worth playing if you get the chance. Warhammer 40k Darktide really does immerse you in the grimdark universe of Warhammer 40k, and it's got some of the most intense cooperative multiplayer gameplay that I've ever had the chance of trying. This one though is pretty different from its contemporaries though, as it actually dives you straight into the hive city of Tertium, which is a very new perspective, and you basically take on some chaos infested enemies as a group of 4. The game really emphasizes teamwork in that matter though, and also strategic planning, as you have to take on different roles as either like a frontline warrior or even a ranged attacker, and with that comes different abilities, weapons, and so much more. For me, the real highlight though is just how they nailed the atmospheric environments along with the detailed lore, and it provides such a rich backdrop for that relentless action. For me, it's similar in a vein to Vermintide. I didn't prefer it as much, but it's great especially if you're an FPS fan. There have been regular updates and seasonal content as well, which has introduced brand new missions, gear, and challenges, so there is a steady stream of fresh content for you to dive into right out the gates. What is your favourite multiplayer game currently available on Xbox Game Pass? You'll have to let me know down below. With that though, make sure to smash that like button if you enjoyed, and again subscribe for more Xbox content every single day. Whilst here though, and if you want to check out one of my awesome Xbox videos, why don't you check out the video on screen now. I recently covered the huge Xbox news that did occur over the past week, and there's a lot of things and delays you need to know about.